Good evening, everyone. The time is 6 o'clock, so I think we should go ahead and promptly get started here. So good afternoon or good evening. Welcome to our 2021 AB 617 community meeting. Before we begin our actual meeting, I did just want to share a couple of important housekeeping items. So first, to ensure that you all hear this meeting in the correct language, if everyone please go to the bottom of your screen and click on that globe icon that's labeled interpretation. And from there, you'll need to select either English or Spanish. After you select your language, if you hear both languages at the same time, please click on mute original audio. If you hear everything clearly, there's no need to click on that mute original audio button. Also for tonight, please note that we do have a Spanish phone line available for this meeting, as well as an English call-in line. It has the same call-in number as this meeting, but a different meeting ID number. So our teleconference dial-in number is 1-669-900-6833. And our Spanish meeting ID number is 932-0955-9643. And at this time, if I can just call upon our interpreter, Margarita, to share some of these instructions in Spanish, as well as some additional instructions.
Buenas tardes a todos y bienvenidos a la reunión de hoy. Por favor, para los que gusten llamar por teléfono para escuchar la interpretación en español, tenemos el número de teléfono, pero con un número de identificación diferente. El número de teléfono es el 669-900-6833. Y el número de identificación para escuchar la reunión en español es 932-0955-9643. Esto es para escuchar la reunión en español por teléfono. Para aquellas personas que gusten escuchar la reunión en español en Zoom, les invitamos que seleccionen su idioma de preferencia y formen parte de este espacio multilingüe. Si está en su computadora, hay un globo o un mundo en la parte inferior de su pantalla que dice interpretación, donde podrá seleccionar español. Ponga una palomita en español para poder escuchar de inglés a español. Si está usando su celular o tableta, ubique los 3 puntitos y ponga una palomita en español y seleccione Done o Finalizar. Este último paso es muy importante para activar la interpretación. Lamentablemente, la interpretación no funciona con Chromebook o si llamó para ingresar, la última parte, sí pueden llamar por teléfono a través de la información que se acaba de dar. Cualquier pregunta sobre la interpretación, indíquelas por el chat. Gracias. Thank you. And if I can be added as an interpreter, please.
Great. Muchas gracias, Margarita. Okay, so we'll go ahead and continue. So tonight's meeting is being recorded. I'd like to note that while we may not be streaming live this evening, the posting of this video will be made available on our AB 617 community ID webpage. And so we will be recording today. So I will just quickly read our disclaimer here. By participating in this webinar hosted by South Coast AQMD, you unequivocally agree to authorize recording of audio and visual content presented during the live event and consent to the subsequent use of the recording in the public domain by South Coast AQMD. Okay, and so for tonight's interaction, attendees can participate in today's discussion in 4 different ways. One, you can use the raise hand feature, which is typically found in the reactions button, or depending on what version of Zoom you have, it might also be in the participants button. You can also type a question in the chat if you have one. Again, if you're calling by phone, just press *9 on your keypad and that will signal to us that you would like to comment, and you'll be able to unmute yourself at that time. And then lastly, we do have a designated email where you can send your comments as well, and that can be sent to ab617@aqmd.gov. Of course, as members of the public, you can participate after today's presentation. And so once we get to that point, I will actually call on each person to speak. And once you're called, you can unmute your line. We'll give about 3 minutes to provide comments, or 5 minutes if you need translation. And when you provide your comment, if you could just please announce your name, your first and last name, and any organization that you are representing tonight. And speakers will be called in the order of requests received if we do have some time from the email as well. Okay, and so let me just go ahead and welcome all of you once again and officially start off this meeting. I know that's a handful of housekeeping, but my name is Arlene Farrell-Soria. I am here with South Coast AQMD in our Legislative Public Affairs and Media Group as a Senior Public Affairs Specialist. And so tonight, just want to let you know that we have some staff that's going to share some information with you on AB 617 overview, the status of our 2021 community selection, as well as some environmental justice updates, a story map, as well as some announcements. And so after that presentation, we will conclude with public comment. So let's go ahead and get this rolling. I'd first like to introduce our acting director of our AB 617 program. I'd like to welcome Ms. Catherine Higgins.
Thank you so much, Arlene, and good evening, everyone. As Arlene said, I'm Catherine Higgins, acting director of community air programs here at South Coast AQMD. We are at that time of year when the California Air Resources Board asks air districts about their nominations on new community selections in accordance with the Community Air Protection Blueprint. So the purpose of today's meeting, as Arlene said, is to provide an update on the status of South Coast actions for the 2021 community selection. But before we go into those details, I'm going to provide a brief background for those of you in attendance who may be unfamiliar with AQMD, as well as the AB 617 process. And at the end of my presentation and that of a colleague, Scott Epstein, there will be an opportunity for public comment. Next slide. So South Coast AQMD is the regional air district. We are responsible for regulating stationary sources of air pollution in the 4 counties shown on the map, which is Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, and the non-desert, the greater portion of Los Angeles County. So a few examples of what we do include planning and developing the Regional Air Quality Management Plan, or AQMP, adopting and implementing rules and regulations, issuing permits, conducting inspections, and responding to air quality complaints, as well as engaging with stakeholders and the general public. Next slide. By way of background, Assembly Bill 617 was signed into law in 2017, and it aims to address local air pollution concerns in environmental justice communities. Environmental justice communities are then recommended to be selected for the development of a community air monitoring plan, or CAMP as we call it for short, and or a community emissions reductions plan, or a CERP. Based on a combination of scientific analyses and community self-nominations. Additional components of the AB 617 program include investing funding into clean technologies, developing best available retrofit control technology, or BART rules, as well as providing easier access to emissions data. Next slide. For a community to be designated as an AB 617 community, it must first go through the process of community identification, recommendation, and then selection. First, disadvantaged communities are identified based on scientific analyses and community self-recommendations that are submitted to the South Coast AQMD. The prioritization of communities is further refined based on air pollution data, as well as community readiness. Lastly, our agency recommends a community to the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, which is the state air pollution agency, to be formally designated or selected as a community within the AB 617 program. Next slide. Okay, this is technology waiting to be filled in here on this slide. So currently, South Coast AQMD has 6 AB 617 communities that have gone through this process. So these communities represent almost half of the 15 communities that have been designated by CARB throughout the state. 3 of our communities were designated in 2018. These are known as Year 1 communities and include Wilmington, Carson, West Long Beach, San Bernardino, Muscoy, and East Los Angeles, Boyle Heights, West Commerce. In 2019, 2 additional communities were designated, and these are Southeast Los Angeles, referred to as SELA, and the Eastern Coachella Valley. Last year, South Coast AQMD recommended an additional community, which is the South Los Angeles community, and it is in the process of developing its CERP, or its Community Emission Reduction Plan. So the designation of a Year 4 community, as we're approaching again this time of year of designation, would spread our existing already limited resources even thinner, and really not allow for an equitable distribution of staff time and attention that's necessary to be devoted to existing communities or to new communities. Next slide. So with limited resources, it is in the best interest of existing and future communities, based on staff recommendations, that we focus on opportunities to strengthen our existing South Coast AB 617 efforts, while at the same time laying the groundwork to support future community readiness. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, our Year 1 and Year 2 communities are in the early stages of implementing their CERPs and their camps, which requires considerable South Coast AQMD staff time, as well as the involvement of community members that are dedicated to implementing those programs. Combined, these communities have over 250 commitments that have been identified and are ongoing, or we're actively working with community members, community leaders, community steering committee members to implement. This work is really time and resource intensive. Additionally, we're meeting regularly with the South Los Angeles Community Steering Committee, as well as its members, community members, to develop their CERP and their camp. And this is going to add additional commitments to be implemented once their programs are adopted. So again, adding another community to these existing efforts would shortchange all participating communities. And with already limited resources and no net increase in funding, the aggressive timelines that we have that are part of the AB 617 program become extremely difficult to achieve, especially for a newly designated community that is just beginning to establish community readiness, while at the same time beginning the CERP development process. Again, so for 2021, South Coast AQMD is not recommending a new AB 617 community. Instead, we're going to be extending our community selection to 2022. So for 2021, staff will be very occupied focusing on implementing actions from CERPs in the existing communities, but also collaborating with communities that have been identified for years 4 through 5 implementation in order to build capacity and establish understanding, provide training in those communities for future selection. So again, we'll be laying the groundwork to assist those communities for future implementation. So that includes building trust in various capacities, enhancing our community outreach, providing air quality educational training, also seeking additional funding support for community selection, supporting community grant applications that would reduce emissions and exposure and prepare communities for 2022. That includes providing letters of support and just advocating for cities who or for communities who have leadership that is displaying some organization and readiness for these programs. So the benefit of all these efforts will help to ensure community preparedness and success for AB 617 implementation in 2022 and beyond. Next slide. So this slide shows some of our ongoing efforts that are complementary to the AB 617 program. And as I mentioned in the last slide, there are 5 communities working on CERP implementation, which are our year 1 and 2 communities, again, which combined have more than 250 actions in place in their plans to reduce emissions or exposure. And again, South Los Angeles, our year 3 community, is working on developing their CERP, which is scheduled to begin early 2022. And that CERP, once completed, will require additional actions to be in place. So these communities also include community air monitoring plans, which are very resource intensive and require aggressive implementation alongside of each of the emission reduction plans. So in the throughout our jurisdiction, our environmental justice efforts include programs that overlay with AB 617 communities, but also extend beyond AB 617 designated communities into environmental justice areas. And again, those include, as shown here, the installation of school air filtration systems, mobile source incentives, BARC rule development, and school educational programs such as Why Healthy Air Matters, which is our WHAM program for high school students, and our Clean Air program for elementary school students. To illustrate a little bit more detail about our environmental justice efforts, our staff has compiled a really neat story map, which will be available on our website in just a few weeks. And at the conclusion of this presentation, we're going to walk you through the highlights of the story map and just, point out some of the environmental justice efforts and really kind of what's offered in that story map. Next slide. Next slide. There seems to be a glitch on my end.
Catherine, we see next steps. At least I see next steps on the screen right now.
Okay, I am having computer issues, so I'm just going to go with what I recall next steps are. We're going to collaborate with community leaders and just support educational programs. We're going to continue working with our existing communities. And we're also going to continue working with our year 3 community, which is South Los Angeles. This is where I'm hoping memory serves me correct because my screen is completely blank, but I believe I have a resource slide that is next. So on the resource slide, we have South Coast aqmd, our website, our AB 617 program website. We also have CARB's website. I don't know if you all can see me, but I cannot see anything, but we have CARB's website, and this will take you to information about the program as a whole, as well as the community selection process. As well, we have on our website a community self-recommendation form, and the link should be on that screen, where communities even now can continue to self-nominate. So even though we're not actively, going to pursue a community for this year, you can still continue to nominate, self-nominate as a community. So we will be looking forward as we, again, lay the groundwork for future year communities to be included or selected and recommended for part of the program. So I believe that is it. And I'm going to now turn this over to, again, my colleague, Scott, to take us out, give us a little illustration of the story map.
Thanks, Catherine. And hi, everybody. My name is Scott Epstein. I'm the program supervisor of the Air Quality Assessment Group in the Planning and Rural Development and Area Sources Division. I want to go to the next slide. So we've been working for a while on a story map that showcases many of the environmental justice efforts throughout the South Coast AQMD. And many of our efforts extend beyond the AB 617 communities. So first question you may be asking, what is a story map? So a story map is basically a scrollable website that has information on the left with text and an interactive map or images on the right side. And the map is interactive. So you can always enter a location, maybe your home address or where you work using the magnifying glass on the right, or you can move the map, scroll in, scroll out. And really the best way to view this information is really on your own through either your PC or with a mobile device. But we wanted to give you a snapshot, really give you a flavor for what's in this story map and what topics we cover. So just as an example, there's 16 slides in our official story map. I'm going to just show you 4 of them in this presentation. Next slide, please. So we have several introductory slides showing where our EJ communities are with some demographic information in the introduction sections. Then we have, going a little fast, maybe if you can go back, now go forward one. Thanks. We have a section with maps of recent air pollution levels throughout the region, and we'll show an example of this in a couple slides. Next slide, please. We have a comprehensive section showing many of our ongoing efforts to reduce pollution in environmental justice communities. Next slide, please. We also have a section on our community outreach efforts, and then a concluding section. Next slide, please. So as an example, I'm showing right here one of our pages on air pollution levels in the region. And like I said, all these maps are interactive. So we have the description on the left. This one happens to be about toxic air pollutants, and then the map on the right. And the maps are interactive. So for example, if you click on the map, if you want to go to the next slide, there will be a pop-up with more details. Next slide, please. Show that pop-up. There we go. Okay. And then the pop-up will provide more details. Next slide, please. So another example on some of the pollution reduction strategies in the story map is our work with school air filtration programs. So we provide information on the left about these programs. If we want to go back one, please. And then a map showing where the schools are, where our air filtration systems were implemented. And then on this slide, this is another one of our examples showing some of the South Coast AQMD educational programs. If you want to go forward one, this would be the slide that says CAPES on it. Sorry, I think it's not very responsive right now.
We're on that one.
Okay, great. So this is the slide that says CAPES on it. So this is one last example slide showing some of the South Coast AQMD education programs. So with the map on the right showing where we've implemented these programs, and then a description on the left. So there's
Scott,
many
sorry to
more,
interrupt you.
maps.
Scott, sorry to interrupt you. You're having a little bit of internet and sound issues. If we could maybe suggest that you just turn off your video at this time, and maybe that'll help resolve some of those issues. Thank you.
Great. Did you want me to repeat anything?
Yeah, go ahead and just start all over on this particular one. That'd be helpful. Thank you.
On this slide.
Yes.
Okay. So this last slide is one last example showing some of the South Coast aqmd educational programs with the map on the right showing where we've implemented some of these programs. The environmental justice communities are also highlighted as they are in many of the other maps. So there are many other maps that I haven't shown in this presentation because this is really just a flavor of what we have in the story map. But we invite you to explore it as soon as it's finalized and posted on the web in the near future. And that's all I had. I can turn it back to Catherine.
Thank you, Scott. And actually, you handed me the baton, and I'm going to hand the baton over to Arlene, who is going to just share about one of our environmental justice events coming up, but then also lead us into the public comment portion of the meeting.
Great. Thank you, Scott and Catherine. Sorry about that interruption there. And sorry for anybody's ears that got blasted a little bit. It is my pleasure on behalf of South Coast aqmd to invite you all to participate in the 7th Annual Environmental Justice Conference. And I also posted in the chat, there was a question, what is an environmental justice community? So if you'll just take a look at that. And we also have our EJ for short webpage with more information. And so this year's theme is the fight for clean air, yesterday, today, tomorrow. And this event will be held on Wednesday, October 27th, 2021. And it will be hosted in person and virtually. However, just depending on the transition and public health lines, we will continue to keep the public updated. This year's event, we are honored to welcome the 38th Governor of California, the Honorable Arnold Schwarzenegger, as this year's keynote speaker. And we also welcome the founder and executive director of Legacy LA, Lou Kalanch, as this year's MC. So again, if you just click on that link there, you'll get more information. And I think that's it for me. We hope to see you all there. That's the only announcement I have, but we'll go ahead and now transition at this point in our meeting. We'd like to open it up for public comments. So again, this is an opportunity for our staff to listen and just kind of take in some of your comments and suggestions. If you'd like to go ahead and raise your hand, or I've seen a few comments in the chat already. I'll just give it a couple moments here. Great, and so we're going to go ahead and call on Justin Guzman. We'll go ahead and unmute you now, Justin. Go ahead, there you
go. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. Arlene and Catherine, great to make your acquaintance. Thank you for the forum. I am the president of the Metal Finishers Association of California. And we want to be a part of this. We've been kind of absent for that. I apologize. We want to be the conduit for issues that we can help resolve with membership. So I commit myself, and we've got. I think we're forming a committee. We see the importance of this, and anything that we can do to help, we're in. Our employees and staff and management is part of the community. A lot of us live, in the area, and this is important to us. So, we were a big part of 1469, 1426, completely engaged, and we're here. Just wanted to mention that. So thank you for the opportunity.
Great, thank you, Justin. And I may have missed it, but which organization or group that are you representing?
Metal Finishers Association of Southern California.
Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, and I see another hand that just came up. Ms. Patricia Strong Fargus, welcome, nice to see you. Go ahead and unmute you now.
I still didn't get the organization the gentleman just said where he was from, because I'm a pastor too, and I was just wondering what organization, because when he said it, static came in. So if he could repeat the organization.
Yeah, Justin, our sound is going in and out. Do you mind just typing it in the chat for us as well? I think that would be helpful as well, Justin.
And if you can hear me, it's the Metal Finishers Association of Southern California.
Metal Finishers Association of Southern California. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Reverend Patricia Strong Fargus, did you want to go ahead and make a comment as well?
Well, I thought he said ministers, and that was going to be one of my steps. I want to bring in the churches to the organization and show them how important that environmental is, and you know, at least inform them, educate them on what we're doing and the steps that we're doing it by, and the plan, rather, the plan. So that was it. I was going to say, okay, I got someone else to help me, but I understood what he said. Thank you. There was another comment I wanted to make also. In the justice program that you're going to have, what exactly is it going to consist of? I understand the stories. I'm going to go and look at some of the stories that's on the website, but will there be other stories, or what will the program consist of on that day? Some of the items here will be discussing. Did you hear me? Did you?
I'm sorry, my audio is cutting out too. I'm going to close my video as well. Could you repeat that question again, Pastor Strong? Thank you.
Okay, I was just wondering what was the subject topic that's going to be discussed, or the age group that should be part of the environmental justice event that's going to be. I just want to know if it's going to be something for young people or what age group, because I would like to have an audience for that day if it's going to be a program.
Yes, thank you. I can quickly address that, and I'll throw the link in our chat as well. But yes, it is. We invite attendees of all ages, and typically, I know in the past we did have a youth session specifically revolving around youth and young adults and what they're doing for the air and engaging them. And they talk about their strategies, and so there will be a lot of discussion in different breakout rooms for that. So let me go ahead and drop the link in our chat, Reverend Strong, that way you can seek more information on that. Okay, thank you. And I do see another hand that has come up. I'd like to go ahead and call on Rafael Yanez. If you'll please state your name and introduce yourself. Thank you. Rafael, if you're speaking, we cannot hear you.
Thank you. Hi. Yeah, I didn't see, I wasn't granted access to unmute myself. Hi, this is Rafael Yanez. I'm with the City of Los Angeles, LA San EJ team. There was a couple of comments that I had. I put them in the chat, but one of the concerns is, given that there were several communities that were not selected that were candidates very good candidates last year. And it would be unfair to those communities if we didn't, if the district, in the name of conserving resources, didn't act judiciously in order to really move forward the AB 617 programs in the communities already identified and allocated, in this program. What I mean by that is the purpose and intent of the AB 617, to my understanding, is for the ultimate reduction of pollution in these selected communities that are highly underserved and environmentally impacted. If there is deviation from the original intent, and that's to bring about monitoring, identify sources of pollution, and then ultimately seek enforcement on those sources of pollution in order to effectuate a reduction in the pollution being impacted by, being absorbed by these communities. I think, it would be a disservice to each of the already selected years 1 through 3 communities. And so by focusing resources to, let's say, education, rather than monitoring and implementation of those plans, if they're not a part of the selection or selected focus of any of these communities, then I think the district should not do things under the AB 617 administrative function. I feel that the South Coast Air Quality Management District should already have educational and outreach funding from other sources that are tied to the general fund of South Coast Air Quality Management District. And so to conclude, again, please, let's focus on bringing meaningful reduction in enforcement action into these communities, because that's where we need funding. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Raphael. Do we have any other questions? Okay, I see none. I know we have questions in the chat. Feel free to leave your email address, or if you'd like to just go ahead and email us directly at AB617 so that we can go ahead and respond to those. Again, if there are no further questions, I'll just give, I see a hand that just came up. So yes, I would like to call on Mark Sheldon. We'll go ahead and unmute you now, Mark. Go right ahead, Mark. You should be able to speak now.
Hang on, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now, but your volume is rather low, so we may need you to speak up.
Okay. All righty. I don't know what's going on. I apologize. I don't know what's going on with the sound. Is that better? Okay. I just wanted to throw in a comment. I've been following the 617 process from year 1, and there's a lot of really worthy, communities that have involved in the process, and I've been really engaged in it, and they've covered a number of different areas of the South Coast District. I can't argue with the places that have been prioritized so far, but it surprises me a little bit that this far into the process, we're talking about year, realistic, into year 3 or 4, depending on how you count it, that no community has been identified that includes any part of Orange County. And and yes, there are the the places that are going to come up first on a EnviroScan map of the LA area are it's probably going to be lower, but I can't believe that there's nothing in the top 10 when you count the industrialized parts of Central Orange County in particular. So, you know, you guys are looking at the data, but I would think that you might want to take a look at that and make sure that you're not missing any islands, you know, Orange County or elsewhere in the district that should be addressed. That's basically the heart of my comment.
Great, thank you for your comments, Mark. Are there any hands anyone else that would like to raise your hand? Okay, great. So again, we are taking notes. We are listening to all our comments here. I'll go ahead and repeat our email address, which is ab617@aqmd.gov. And we'll go ahead and put that in the chat as well. If there are any suggestions that our community has, I apologize. I just saw another hand come up. And so I want to give the mic over to Ms. Linda. We'll go ahead and unmute you now.
Hello, my name is Linda Cleveland. I'm part of the South Los Angeles CSC co-leads. Since you guys are experiencing funding issues and you can't select a new new neighborhood or a new area, is it possible that some of that funding that you have could be used for South Los Angeles, because our CSC is one of the largest, our area, the communities that were selected is the largest area that you have. And we do see that there's going to be a shortfall on funding because of the number of communities that are included in year 3.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Linda. Again, we're taking down all our comments. For most of you, we do know how to reach you, and we can have some of this further dialogue. But I do want to put it out there again. If anyone else has any comments, feel free to put in the chat or email us at ab617@aqmd.gov. I'll give it one last chance or opportunity for public comment at this time.
Arlene, I know we don't, oh, we do have one more question.
Thank you, yeah. Yes, no problem. Let's go ahead and call on Robert Baz, who just raised his hand, and we'll go ahead and unmute you at this time as well. Go ahead, Robert.
Hi, I'm just making sure you guys can hear me, right?
We can hear you, so please go ahead and say your name and let us know who you're representing today. Thank you.
My name is Robert Baz. I'm with the Happy City Coalition. I just had a really brief question. I saw that Southeast LA was designated one of the AQMD communities before. I live in Downey, which is like right around there, but I was curious what cities are located within what you guys consider Southeast LA for that particular community. That was my whole question.
Sure, Robert. So we actually have a webpage dedicated to the Southeast LA area, unless one of our staff can go. Actually, here we go. It's Bell Gardens, Southgate, and Cudahy, and Huntington Park. Those are the areas that are covered under the Southeast LA area.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. As well as Florence Firestone.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, are there any additional comments at this time?
Arlene, I don't see any other hands, but I do, and I know we're not engaged, we're not having a Q&A. This is public comment, but I'm concerned that There might have been a misunderstanding. So with Raphael's question, and then this also speaks to Ms. Linda's comment slash question. So just to clarify, the existing communities, there's no shortage of funding or funding that will be taken away from existing communities. So the 6 existing communities will benefit from the funding that is in place. And then again, that is the same amount of funding for the last 3 years, even though we have added new communities. So for Raphael, again, just I hope this clarifies that we're not intending to, we will not be taking monies that is already stretched across our 6 communities and using that for training of any sort for capacity building with communities that we're looking to assist to lay the groundwork for the future. So in a sense, we're making a pause right here until we can, you know, make some progress in getting additional funding. And some communities who had expressed readiness early on didn't really understand what that was in light of this particular program and what is called for in terms of community engagement. And so some cities or communities have said, wait, we're really not ready. We thought we were. And so those benefits of taking time to conduct training classes, you know, things that we do, that we cram right now into year 1 of a CERP development process. We will be able to work with communities without the restrictions of the time frame that is in place with the statute currently, and just work, you know, more freely with communities. And again, part of who that is will surface depends upon their self-nominations, and again, where they are in that pipeline that was established back in 2017, and that information is on our website. So I hope that clarifies what we're doing and kind of the pause that we're taking here. Again, not wanting to take away from our current communities, and certainly not adding another community to take away from the existing pot of funding.
Great, thank you so much for that clarification, Catherine. And again, thank you all for your various comments and suggestions that you've shared regarding you know, the funding and educational resources and training. And again, just continuing to engage with other organizations. And so if there isn't anything else, Catherine, I think it'd be appropriate to conclude public comments at this time.
I think it is. I think it is a benefit to all of us to have a little bit of time that we can speak for our families or yes. Oh, Raphael's hand is back up.
Okay, let's go ahead and hear from Raphael just once more, please.
Hi, thanks. So Catherine, thank you so much for the clarification. I was just writing it up in the chat, but in any case, yeah, so there are 2 educational programs that you identified in the presentation, both WHAM and your, I can't remember the other acronym for the other one, but those are distinct educational type outreach programs that you mentioned that would happen in lieu of trying to go for an additional community. And that's where my comment came from, that any type of educational outreach should be funded under the general the general funds of the South Coast Air Quality Management, not the AB 617 programs. That's where the comment came from. And, you know, it's particularly important that, you know, any staffing resources currently appropriated to the AB 617 program remain appropriated, because we just really need to focus on monitoring, identifying sources, and enforcement of those sources, or tightening of the rules in concert to bring the needed air reductions down. Because, you know, we already have a heavy lift in each of the communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Rafael. So again, another clarification, our WHAM program and CAPES programs are not funded from AB 617. So those are some of the additional programs that are in place that AB 617 communities benefit from, as well as other communities that are environmental justice, but not part of the AB 617 program.
Got it. Thank you. I just didn't know this was supposed to be a presentation on the AB 617. So that's why I'm a little confused. Thank you.
I don't see any additional questions, but so some of the actions in our SERPs also implement the WHAM and CAPES programs. But part of what Scott presented and part of what we were showing is that there are additional efforts that we are extending, again, beyond the AB 617 communities. So for those communities that have already been selected, that's great, but there are communities that still want that need to be aware of those programs in place, and that those programs may be what they use to assist with their groundwork preparation, their capacity building to get ready for 2022.
Great, thank you, Catherine, and all our commenters, as well as those that have left comments in our chat. We really do appreciate your thoughts as you help us to evaluate next steps of this program. And so thank you for taking the time to provide that to us. And also, so just for tonight, looking ahead, please note that tonight's presentation from earlier is posted already on our AB 617 Community ID webpage. And we had some great comments and recommendations tonight. And as we all work together to improve our AB 617 program, as we continue to improve our air quality, both regionally and locally through the program, I would like to just remind you all to check out our South Coast AQMD app, which also has additional information on air quality, as well as some of the upcoming events and alerts on there. As always, we have our 1-800-CUT-SMOG complaint line. If you see anything in your local neighborhoods, please feel free to call that 1-800-CUT-SMOG, and we have operators to take down that information. Again, we really look forward to this future dialogue. The dialogue doesn't end here tonight. This was just the start of it. Again, feel free to email our ab617@aqmd.gov to get that conversation rolling. And if there is nothing else, I just want to go ahead and thank all of you for participating in tonight's virtual meeting, and have a good evening.